Hi, folks. So today's topic is interesting one. You don't need more rules. Um, so we're going to look at this because it does lead to a lot of frustration for people um, when they're trying to change anything, but particularly when they're on a journey to try and improve their health and well-being. And that, of course, could be losing weight, but it could be their general health and well-being, more energy, but could also be their mindset. And um, it's a massive challenge because we're in Western society, we're educated to believe there is a way to do things. And so what we have to do is we have to find the way. And so we seek out information. And the information is like a set of rules. If you follow this, this happens. And if you you can look at this in any aspect of life, but if you look at it from the point of view in the dieting world, it's easy for you to think there's the right plan out there. If I just knew what that plan is, then I would be able to follow it, and then everything would be okay. I'd get it right, and everything would be fine. And hopefully by now you might be beginning to discover, actually, but I doubt it, there isn't such a thing as the right plan for you, uh, which is going to follow everyone else's. There is just your right plan, your way of doing it. The problem is that we're so conditioned to believe that we need to find the way, we keep seeking these rules, the shoulds, you should do this, etc. And the reality is, you don't need more rules. You actually just need to trust yourself more. It's all inside you. So sometimes when I'm explaining the principles behind LightMinds, I use the analogy of riding a bike. And most of us can ride a bike, and hopefully you might be able to go back to that time when you learned to ride a bike. You've probably forgotten how you did it. Um, but you see, when you got on a bike, more likely with one of your parents, um, you didn't have a set of rules to follow. So, for example, they didn't say, right, this is the way you keep your balance. This is the way you pedal at speed. Um, Look ahead, not down. They didn't really do that if you think about it. Now, of course, there might be some minimal amount of instructions, but there was very little. Uh, if you got loads of instructions, you wouldn't be riding because you would have been thinking too much about it. You would have had what we describe as contaminated thinking going on, that you wouldn't be able to pay attention enough to be able to ride effectively. And that's a simple case of something that happens when we're younger, but it actually applies today. You see, when you're trying to ride a bike, you learn to balance by feeling it for yourself. No one can tell you what that's like. They might, but you've got to feel it. And even then, you might not really be able to say it's like this because you have this innate intelligence flowing through you. And no rule book can give you that. When you allow the innate intelligence to do its job, you ride your bike effortlessly. When you try and think about it, you won't. And that's why, most parents, when they're teaching a child, although it's interesting, I imagine it's very different today than it was when I learned to ride my bike, when it was a case of just get on with it. Now, parenting has been so, protective. I wonder actually if it is different. There's the way to do it. The interesting thing is, it's the same with food, it's the same with movement, it's the same with your health. There is an innate intelligence flowing through us. I've used in some of the lessons And the LightMinds program, I use this analogy of when you cut yourself, your body knows how to repair. It repairs itself, to a degree. If you really rip it apart, then you might need some extra help. But even then, once the stitches are in, it's repairing itself. That's a physical response. Well, we have exactly the same mentally. So, you know, rules are like the training wheels that you put on bikes, and they can help you to get started. So, it can be very important to give people an understanding about. I remember, talking to people about food, and one of the biggest shifts I ever made was to understand the balance of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and it was a big thing. But when I learned that shift to 40, 30, 30, um, the thing about it was I was learning in an environment which was with a group of triathletes, and they took it to such a degree, they measured everything, and it drove me mad. So it was for a very short period of time that I did that. And I then understood, a lump of protein and lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, that's a good way of looking at it. So I had a kind of outline, and that gave me a good kickstart. But you have to take it off. You have to have a feel for yourself. And it's only when you have a feel for yourself do you learn to truly ride. You got to let go of those things. If you're following a very strict regime, you need to be able to let go of that and get a sense of it. And my working in the field, particularly of weight loss, I know that there is definitely not one way for everybody. There's different ways. I was a vegetarian for several years, and I could never understand why I was hungry all the time. Then it was pointed out to me why, and I went back to eating meat. By the way, that doesn't mean you have to do that, but it suited me, and it's suited me ever since that. So, so when people say to me, "I do this way," and then they look at everybody as though you're supposed to everyone do it that way, I can't live with that. You got to find your way. And when you find your way, you're going to have to wobble. You're going to have to adjust things. You're going to have to find your balance. See, wobbling isn't failing, it's learning. Um, it's trust being built in real time. It's discovery. It's curiosity. To me, that's really important that you begin to trust in yourself to find your way. As long as you're in the game of being curious, of discovery, that's a part of the conditioning that we have at the moment is seek the information. There are experts out there that will tell you. Well, when you're in the game of discovery and learning to trust yourself, then it all changes. You'll test things out, you'll try things out, you'll experiment. There's no failure. So, rules are like traffic lights on a deserted road. You stop because the rule says stop, even though there are no other cars for miles. And it can feel really rigid. It can feel pointless and frustrating. But when you're driving with intuition, with awareness, you still will stay safe. But you'll be flexible, you'll be responsive, you'll be alive, and you'll adapt to real situations in front of you. Many years ago, I achieved some success, and I decided I was going to have a Porsche, a bit like midlife crisis. I know what you're thinking. And I got a Porsche, and my wife rather sensibly said, "You've got to learn to drive the Porsche." So she booked me a private lesson with this ex-police driving instructor. And we went in the car, and he said, "Right, first thing is what we're going to do is you're just going to drive how you normally drive." And I went, "Okay." And then at the end of it, he said to me, "Yeah, you're a competent driver, um, but you're not really very good." And I thought, what do you mean? Now, the thing was, and I spent the whole day with him and I learned this, I'm competent enough to pass my test, etc., to follow the rules. But in terms of driving at speed, I wasn't competent. And I don't know if this applies to you, but I was taught mirror signal maneuver. So you looked in your mirror, you signal what you're going to do, and then maneuver. And sometimes during the day, you'd say to me, "Is there a reason why you're signaling?" And I would think, "Yeah, mirror signal, maneuver." And there was no car there. He said, "What are you doing?" And I would look out in front of me, so there's there's the road. That's what I looked at. Well, he taught me to look miles in the distance. I had no idea how he could see things because he was looking in a completely different place. So he was anticipating. I had none of that. When he took the training wheels off, things shifted for me enormously in how I could drive, and my mastering skill level went up. This is how our body works. It's not a machine that needs constant policing. It's incredibly intelligent. It tells you when it's hungry, and it will tell you, if you're listening, when it's satisfied. It will tell you what feels nourishing and what doesn't. And that is different for each of us. There are no rules. So in the LightMinds program, you'll hear me say, you know, we're not here to teach you another set of rules. We're not here to say to you, this is the way you should do it. And that really frustrates a lot of people, by the way. They're looking for the process. Show me the way. I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. Now you show me your way. That might be the one that works for me. And there's no way. And that upsets people because that's what they're looking for, because they're conditioned to believe there must be a way. But what we're really helping you to do is reconnect with your inner wisdom. You see, because rules are rigid, but you're alive, you're intuitive, you're incredibly capable. So, have a go. For example, before your next meal, pause and ask yourself, what do I want that will nourish me? Not what's on the plan, not what should I have, but what do I know inside me that will genuinely nourish me right now? And see, that's the way trust grows. One choice at a time, listening. Now, I'm not silly. I know that when it comes to trusting yourself, it might seem scary at first, predominantly because you've been conditioned since you were a very young child not to trust yourself, to trust other people, to trust well-meaning adults, parents, teachers. That's what employers. That's what we've been told to trust. Trust other people. Trust the politicians, etc. Well, rules give you the illusion of safety, but at a big price. The cost of rules is freedom. So when you begin to trust yourself again, it feels like you're unlocking a door and you didn't know it was locked. But suddenly you have space, lightness, choice. And that's really where lasting change takes place. See, you learn through insights. A baby learns through insights, not necessarily consciously, because we're learning all the time. Lots of it's taking place unconsciously. That's how we learn. That's, what you're really looking for. That's where change will take place. You don't need more rules. You need more listening, more trusting, more being willing to wobble until you find your balance. Because you have everything you need inside yourself. And the more you practice tuning in, the more freedom you'll feel. You know, um, just it's not a case of letting go of stuff. It's just being willing to be yourself and to find your way. Thanks very much.